Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to argue that this is not partisan, but I am going to argue that it's less partisan than the treatment of our members by the majority, the Democrat majority at the time. I'd like to ask Ms. Wild, did Ms. Taylor Greene or Mr. Gosar get brought before the Ethics Committee before they were removed from all of their committees?
No, I don't. No.
Okay.
Not on those matters.
Thank you. Was it wrong then to remove them? You're arguing that we should take Ms. Omar before the Ethics Committee rather than doing this by resolution, even though that was the process that was handled in the previous Congress to Ms. Taylor Greene and Mr. Gosar. Was it wrong to remove Ms. Taylor Greene and Mr. Gosar from their committees by the Democrat majority without going through ethics and doing that by resolution, in your opinion?
Let me just say, I would have some, I do have some problems with the process that was followed, but I would also, again, point out that the difference in comments between Ms. Omar and her opinions about Israel in general, 9/11 and so forth, are a lot different than a member who makes statements that to incite violence. So I guess that's a 50-50 answer. I didn't love the process, but I also think this is a distinct situation.
And just to be clear, the comments made by Ms. Omar were made when she was a member of Congress, and the comments made by Ms. Taylor Greene was when she was not a member of Congress. Is that correct?
I think there's some of each for both of them. I think, and I can't tell you which statements exactly, but I think both of them made some statements before they came to Congress and some statements while they were in Congress, of the ones that have been referenced tonight.
Do you believe that Ms. Taylor Greene and Mr. Gosar were afforded due process?
Can I see the resolution again, Mr. Guest? Mr. Guest was kind enough. He has the one at least on Ms. Taylor Greene. I don't know if you have the one on. I would have to say, no, I don't think they were afforded due process, or at least Ms. Taylor Greene. And now I'm looking at the one for Mr. Gosar, because the statements I made before about whereas clauses not being included as binding material, the resolution on Marjorie Taylor Greene is considerably different than the one on Mr. Gosar in terms of the resolved section. And so I can't put them in the same category. But as I said before, I don't think that it was the correct process. And I think that we should all be looking forward in the 118th to how we're going to do things better rather than continuing things into perpetuity. Every time we shift the majority, we're, under this, if we don't follow the process that has been part of this body, i.e. the Ethics Standing Committee since 1967, then we're just going to be doing this every couple of years or whenever the majority shifts.
Ms. Wild, I appreciate that, and I appreciate that you were not the chairman of the Ethics Committee during that time, and you may have advised your Democratic caucus or conference otherwise in that process. Mr. Guest, I want to thank you for your presentation. I know this is not your issue, and I appreciate your time here before this committee. This is not a one-to-one here, in my opinion, because Ms. Omar is not being removed from all committees. She's being removed in this resolution from participation on a specific committee that requires high security clearance and other factors, in contrast to what the Democrat majority did to Ms. Taylor Greene and Mr. Gosar, which was completely remove them from all committees without due process. Do you believe this is a one-to-one with those circumstances in what we're dealing with today?
I do not, and I agree with your assessment that it's very different in the fact that this resolution is very narrowly tailored just to remove Ms. Omar from a single committee, which is Foreign Affairs. Many of her statements, if not all, relate to statements that she made of people of Jewish descent, and those are issues that are taken up by the Foreign Affairs Committee. If you remember back historically with Marjorie Taylor Greene, originally the issue was that she made statements regarding a prior school shooting that she was on at that time, Ed in Labor. I think it's now referred to as Ed in Workforce. At that time, Leader McCarthy went to Speaker Pelosi, said that he would remove her from that committee, but since her statements were based toward educational shooting, that was not accepted by the Speaker, so the resolution went forward removing her from all committees. As it relates to Mr. Gosar, very similar. He was originally brought, there was a motion brought, or a resolution brought to remove him from oversight. That was the only committee listed in that specific resolution. Once that came to rules, there was a manager's amendment which then removed him from natural resources, which was his additional committee. And so we've seen that, in my opinion, what is being sought here in this resolution, again, is much more narrowly tailored to a specific committee. And I don't believe that you can, as you said, I don't believe it's one-to-one. I think that this resolution is different than the one we saw against both Ms. Greene and Mr. Gosar.
And just to be clear, Ms. Omar, if we pass this resolution, will be able to serve on other committees.
That is correct, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I just want to close by saying I don't think this is not a similar issue, but I do want to concur with our chairman, Mr. Cole, that door was opened and the precedent was already set. We are following a much less partisan process, even though we have heard remarks on this side of the dais that it is partisan. It is certainly, in my opinion, as a new person to this Congress, we are approaching it in a more, with a more timid approach, even though we are taking this action and it is a firm action. We're not saying she can't serve on any committees. We're just saying she can't serve on this particular committee, and I yield back.
Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Well, I think the witness is very much for